Uh, yes. Yeah, I think you're right. Wait, can I just? So the so the first one was I think was wait, let me think. It's Yoda. Yeah, it's
Okay.
Yoda. This one. First one is Yoda. The one in the middle, it's I don't know, like a wire called Jeventes. I don't know.
I think I know him. Yeah.
He is playing with oh, just putting the record on. Yeah, is playing with Naomi, I think,
Mm.
a bit. And the bottom one is I think it's Petco. Yeah.
Oh God. I
Oops.
just see that name. If I hear that name,
It,
that's
it
a problem.
it's just I wanted to have like there is not that much tier list and like available. But
I mean, not that it matters. I wasn't really planning on taking this
yeah,
seriously anyway.
yeah,
Yeah.
obviously. It's just the idea was to see if there is like a pattern or something, you know.
I mean, I have a pretty good guess of what I think the pattern will be, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
I will just send my
But
wait.
I also think that like things like Destro, Shadow Priest, and Devoke are just looking so strong that they might get nerfed before it goes live.
I will
Yeah,
just
possibly.
put something here. Maybe in lounge if people are interested. We discuss
You have
about
a pretty heavy pop on your voice. You have a pop filter on your mic?
maybe. Do you want me to? Oh, I don't know. If you're interested,
Oh,
yeah.
that's not really an issue for me, but it might sound bad for any listeners.
I let me just fix it. Is it like it's the voice on Discord, right? Not on.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I can't hear your voice on stream.
How can I?
I think if you put your mic a little bit away from your mouth, it probably fixes it.
Okay, like this, or maybe I
Yeah.
need maybe I need just to put like that. Yeah. Is it better?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm changing all the time mics and shit, and that's pretty terrible. Okay. Boom. I just put on peak obviously the link. So we try to do 2 hours podcast. Let's try to
Stick
just
to that.
to stick to that. Yeah, I know it's hard, but I have the
I think
goddess.
we'll be able to do it this time.
Yeah, I think like just a quick intro, just like a kind of introduction. I was like pretty surprised about the number of relevant news about season 4. It's like very low actually. There
Yeah.
is like I don't know. It's I don't
Yeah,
even know if we
there,
have like affixes and raids and shit like this. Or
there must be a lot going on in the background for this to be the case.
Yeah. I don't expect there to be any affix because that would be the one thing that they would announce, right?
yeah, except like, especially for testing shit because there is no raid testing right now. Um, I think it was only Mythic Plus tests on PTR. I don't think there were any raids testing. So that's
No, I don't think so.
in so yeah, just recall that season is I mean it's live in 1 week ish. Uh it seems I don't know, maybe they just rush things and it seems there are more, data on the Mist of Pandaria remix more data
Yeah.
on that than in the season 4 itself.
But there's also a lot more to say about the remix, I guess, so that makes sense.
Yeah, but I'm really hyped about this one, but that's another topic, I guess. So the idea today is to discuss about obviously season 4, and let's try to make I would say efficiently. It's like we know in peak there are always the same questions coming and coming, and I'm pretty sure like there will be two monks looking at this podcast. But I think it's always nice if we can put on YouTube, and maybe I can just cut some parts and stuff to make it like kind of Q&A. I mean FAQ Q&A. I think it's Q&A in English. And even if it might not be updated yet. I mean updated like because things are always changing with tuning and shit. I think it's always nice to have like some basis on YouTube. It's pretty lacking. I don't like the guides, the video guides, but I think just having a discussion might be uh, helpful for people. If per chance they type on YouTube, Windwalker season 4, something like this. So maybe they will jump on this podcast and see stuff. No, no webcam today. So no, no, j'ai pas mis. No webcam. So yeah, the idea is just to maybe just quickly talk about season 4. What is this? For people who are not really familiar with this concept, it's the second time only we got this. So first time was in Shadowland, second time is now, and then we can jump directly into, I would say, classic questions. You guys are probably expecting during the next couple of months on peak. So let's try to have, like, I would say, so the question, a clear and short answer about this, and maybe in like a third part, or after we got this short answer, maybe we can like go into details. For example, let's say a quick example, you have like embellishments. You can say directly this, the best embellishment would be this, without any further explanation. Is just this, and then we can just discuss about why is this embellishment and not this one, and things like this. And we can do,
Sounds good to me.
I mean, looks like, I think, so people can just directly have the question answer, uh, and I will type basically on the slide the answer, and as you talk about this, and if you're okay with this, slides will be provided for people, and also like it's gonna be on YouTube with the recording of Twitch, so it's perfect. Yeah, so third part is going to be about more in-depth analysis. So Kholer, you provide me some sims and stuff like this, so we can discuss, look at those sims, see what they are actually saying. Maybe it's like more an advanced part for people that are interested. Like, you don't really have to go into those details if you just want to go directly on season 4 efficiently. You just read or listen part 2. You would probably have all the things you need to go into this second part. So yeah, and then it's just overall opinion, maybe a good way of balance, I mean, doing some conclusion for season 3, because I mean, season 3 was actually probably, I would just maybe react on one sentence from Naomi. As he said, Monk will be never as strong as in season 3, but it failed
That's
against,
in season? This season 3?
yeah,
Oh.
like he said, I think he's probably talking about relatively to the other tier sets,
Oh, okay.
or maybe because of the dungeon pool or whatever.
Well, we can talk.
Yeah,
We can talk about that. I'm not 100% sure if that's correct.
Me neither.
let's see how the season 4 will start. So we have like 1 hour and, let's say, 50 minutes, because we started a bit late. So I think the breakdown should be like 10 minutes first part, like 50 minutes, 1 hour second part, Yokido, and the rest is gonna be 1 hour ish. I don't know. So yeah, let's go. Uh, yeah, I put like a roadmap. I think it's nice to, because people tend to like mix things about what is season 4. Obviously, the idea is to go back to whole Dragonflight raids. So as we know so far, we know there is a weekly rotation for each raid, and each week it's a new raid that is awakened. And in Awaken, bosses are stronger, and they will give you more more loots. In Mythic Plus, we have the 8 Dragonflights dungeons, except Dawn of the Infinite. So it's as of old, I mean, Season 1 and Season 2 dungeons with some tuning that occurred. Maybe we can discuss about this tuning in the third part of the discussion. And because of this rotation each week, you might miss a loot from a boss of a given raid because you are unlucky, and they put like the bullion, dinar, whatever you want to call it. So it's like a token. Uh, I think the only way, as I know today, to get this money is to do weekly quests, right?
I think that's the only confirmed source so far. Yeah.
Okay, so you do like, I don't know, weekly stuff. So maybe, so in season 4 of Shadowland, it was by killing bosses. It was a certain number of bosses you have to kill, and it was very limited to 3 dinar. So you could get only three trinkets or 3 weapons at the total. I think also weapons, two-handed weapons were 2 dinar. I
No, I
think.
don't think so.
I don't remember yet. I don't really remember, so maybe not. I don't know. Um, and yeah, so you can exchange those bullions with any trinket, any weapon, and actually any loot. I think maybe like it's any ring, whatever from the raid. So like this
Yeah.
picture, I think it's pretty small, but you can see you can exchange 2 bullion for the Giorna ring or Erana ring. You have like idol, another set of trinkets, boon, whatever. So it's, we don't know how many bullions we will have during the whole season because it will depend on how long the season lasts. But at least you can get several loots, and I think if you're like consistently playing, you can be pretty quickly geared. Uh, and that, I think the Dina discussion will be very important because as you can as Kholer said, you have like a lot of choices, and you might be limited to the dinar, so you have to choose wisely. So I would say dinar, bullion, whatever is the same.
I
Uh,
do think it's worth mentioning that because the weekly quest has been more or less confirmed as at least one of the sources, maybe the only source, but at least one of the sources, it's not that strange to assume that you will just get 1 or 2 bullions every week for the entire season.
mhm.
Uh, Combine that with the fact that every raid piece
Thank you
with
guys for the
actual
follow, by the
stats
way.
and
Thank you so much.
effects costs 2 bullions to buy. But there's also a whole bunch of cosmetics that you just buy for the transmog, which only cost 1 bullion each, and there's a mount which costs 3. But
Hmm.
the fact that they also include cosmetics in there is a very strong indication that the amount of bullions is not strongly limited, because otherwise, no one in their right mind would be spending it on cosmetics.
Yeah, true. It's like, yeah, we have indeed transmogs and mounts, so you might be probably like the amount of bullion will be pretty, let's say,
It will
high.
probably be quite high. Yeah.
Anyway, decision is I think it's very important to say that decision is just like some time gate I would say before the war within the expansion. So it's like we just have something pretty fun to play with. I mean, fun
Year
is,
waiting room.
yeah, it's waiting room, yeah, before the next expansion, and it's nice to, well, or not, I don't know, but at least you can be pretty easily geared. And also a new thing comparing to Shadowland was that I mean is that Blizzard asked people to vote for their tier set for each class and each spec. So for example, Woodwalker is season 1. I don't know about Brew and Mistweather, but it's,
Mistweaver got season 3. Brewmaster also got season 3.
No idea about Brewmaster, but yeah, Miss Weevil season 3.
yeah, so the idea is that you don't have necessarily the same season for each spec. That's pretty nice. So yeah, as we said, we are in the we are season 1, and I think I just put the tier set just so the top one was the old tier set, so the one we used to have in Vault of Incarnates season one,
Yep.
and now you have the new one, so you can see. Well, obviously, I just got the blue one 2 minutes ago, so that's why I could have just removed the first one. But just to say that we have some tuning in the tier set itself about damage done with enhanced kicks. So it was 30% after Feast of Fury. So your Feast of Fury increases the damage dealt by your next two Rising Sun kicks or Spinning Crane Kick by 30%. And where you have the full part is now the three Rising Sun kicks or three next Spinning Crane Kick. I mean, that are enhanced. And it increases the damage of your next Feast of Fury by 7%, not
Yeah.
5, stacking up
And
to 3 times.
Just because there was some confusion back in season one about this phrasing, it means that whenever you cast Fist of Fury, you gain 2 stacks of a buff that buffs either your Rising Sun Kick or Spinning Crane Kick. Like casting either of them will spend those stacks. If you have the 4 set, you will gain 3 charges of that buff, and then spending those charges will buff the next Fist of Fury.
Mhm.
yep.
So what is nice, and I think it's probably the reason people, I mean, some people asked to vote for this tier set, is that it's not changing drastically our gameplay.
Yeah. Compared
Yeah.
to having no tier set at all, it basically just means that you're casting your Fist of Fury on cooldown and filling the time between with as many Rise of Sun kicks or Spinning Crane kicks as possible, depending on single target or AOE,
Hmm.
which is sort of already what we'd be doing anyway without tier set, but this just makes that better, really.
Yeah. Uh, season 3 was tier set was very polarizing on both
Yes.
ends. I think season 2, actually, I think a lot of people liked in some aspect, but also people remember it was very weak, which is why many people away from it, and then people softly remembered Windwalker's performance on some bosses in season 1. Um, so yeah, namely Korok, for example, was a
Yeah.
really good boss for us.
Hmm.
When I
And
when I think of tier sets, I usually think about like the design effect and the effect that it has on the rotation, and not so much the strength of it, because strength is always tunable. If they choose to do that, of course. And in terms of design, this tier set is not very interesting in comparison to season 2 and 3, because the season 2 tier set actually made you cast your Rising Sun Kick in AoE, which is a pretty significant change. And the season 3 just kind of makes everything a bit quicker by having more CDR, so you cast your Rising Sun Kick and your Fist of Fury more often, and it has a pretty noticeable effect on your priority list and your decision making.
Yeah.
On the other hand, that just means that the rotation in season 4 will still be significantly different from the one in season 3, which for me is enough in terms of variety. So I'm quite happy with this tier set.
actually one from season 2 too, if you look at AoE. So
What do you mean?
it's season 2 AoE has also been very different because of the insane
Yeah, exactly.
priority of Rising Sun.
Yeah, and
So
like some people found it boring because it essentially made the AOE rotation like more or less the same as the single target rotation, and I kind of get that. But for people that have been playing Windwalker in the long term, it was a clear difference in feel, which was enough for most people.
Hmm.
So
yeah,
it's good for longer players, and a bit boring for newer players, I suppose.
Also, like,
and personally, I'm happy that Blizzard kept their promise. They said they were gonna buff underperforming tier sets, and they did.
And they did, and it's
And
actually quite
that
strong.
that was a big grudge that a lot of people had
Mm.
against the season 1 and season 2 tier set.
Yeah.
A
hmm
lot of class discord said, vote for season X. This is by far the best one. So there's no way that they're gonna tune it accurately. And if we were gonna have gone the case of that, then we all would have had to vote season 3 tier set because of
Yeah.
its very powerful effects, particularly in Mythic Plus. But no, we went for the design and got probably, I guess, one of the most honest community reactions, I guess.
I hope so.
Uh,
At least the EU
uh,
side, because the US side still voted for season 2, I think.
yeah.
yeah, I voted for season 2 personally. Yeah.
Oh, I
Oh
did.
yeah.
I voted for season 1.
Yeah, same for
Uh,
season one. Yeah.
and I know some people that voted for season 3, and I can totally understand it, and that's my whole point.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, no,
so
that's how you want it, right? You want people just to vote for their honest preference.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like very like in the other Discord, I can say that because I've seen some other class Discords, the votes were more polarized. Like they said, you have to vote for this one. Um, I mean, you have
Yeah,
to. It's
they're
not a
definitely
have.
going into it with the wrong spirit because they're just voting for their strongest tier set, and that should be irrelevant. They should be voting for the one that feels best or plays most interestingly or something. You know,
And anyway,
whatever value you can attach to them that isn't just purely numbers.
I mean, if you vote for like a stronger tier set, they would probably tune it down, and if you vote for like a weaker tier set, they
They'll
would
buff
probably
it.
tuning up. So
Yeah.
yeah, they would buff it. So I think the idea, like I voted personally season one because I just felt it was the easiest tier set comparing to season two and three, and also the most I would say like the one you can feel. Like you press AOE, like the fact, for example, we had to press spinning cranking in single target this season was completely, I mean, depending on some, procs and stuff, was completely, I don't know, not logical. And
Hmm.
pressing Resin Sun Kick in AoE for me, it's not logical. Even if it simplifies at the end the gameplay because you, as you said, Kholer, you have the same the same rotation in single target in AoE in season two. But I don't know. To me, like spinning crank kick should be pressed in AoE, Resin Sun Kick should be pressed in single target low cleave, and that's it. There is like,
Yeah, that's fair.
uh,
yeah.
like
I, I, I
I don't
I
know.
don't think this is something we need to go into large detail here,
Yeah,
but
it's
I
just
am pretty sure that if we had gotten the season two tier set, and unless they made some very extreme changes to the set, that we would have absolutely cast spinning crank kick instead of blackout kick in season four due
mhm.
to the large buff spinning crank kick got in season three.
Oh yeah, and Dance of Chi-Chi specifically.
So yeah, so we would have just gotten like Rising Sun Kick in AoE as an extra button and
Hmm.
everything else unchanged, basically.
Yeah, because they buffed the spinning green kick outside of the tier sets, like
Yeah,
the
that's
dance
Yeah,
of
why I
chi.
voted for season two, because that was what like my dream rotation
yeah.
looked like for Windwalker and Dragonflight.
Like a lot of
Getting
people,
an actual talent update, but yeah.
like if you remember, we had some pretty significant buffs on December 19th, right? So we had a baseline buff of 20% to spinning crane kick, uh, a buff of like 100% to Dance of Chi-Chi, so it went from 300% buff to 400% buff.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe there was a Fist of Fury increase as well. I'm forgetting a few of the details.
That was a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that was a lot of tuning, but the biggest change by far was the spinning crank kick change, which combined with the buff to the season one tier set is going to make spinning crank kick very strong in AoE
yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I was looking at if because I wanted to show you a post from Jordan. I mean Banshee. Let me
Yeah.
try to
Yeah.
because she I mean I don't know if it's her, but like she posted something about buffs. People got like throughout, I don't know, a few patches, something. So
That's interesting.
I
The
need
number or
the
the
number
number of
the
buffs or the actual value?
no, 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 the number of buffs, but I need to because she posts a lot, so I need to go. uh
I wouldn't be surprised to see a certain spec near the top.
Yeah, for sure.
documented. Oh, maybe it's about just dungeons. I thought she did something for, I don't know. I need to find it anyway. Oh yeah, it's here. Wait, but is it just for tanks? I think it's for tanks only. Oh damn.
Well, even if we don't have the data, it is quite likely that Windwalker has seen some of the largest amount
Yeah.
of like numerical changes across this expansion, which
Next to Mistweaver, Mistweaver
yeah,
got buffed every
but
week in season
but
one.
that was also
That
because
was a bit of a meme.
Mistweaver has gone through a lot of flux because of their design changes, right? But Windwalker has seen a lot of changes,
Hmm.
ironically because of a lack of design changes, because we're still stagnating every season. We need to be cranked up with tuning.
Yeah. Okay, let me just put.
Unfortunately, that they still haven't managed to. Well, they still haven't really attempted to fix that. I hope
Okay.
they try something at least in the.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've said this on the last episode of this podcast, but season 4 is the best time, the best opportunity to do some pretty significant class work. If you have any classes that you feel like are neglected or outdated, the low competitive nature of season 4 would make it the best time to do some impactful changes to those
Hmm.
classes or specs. So, Blizzard, if you're listening, please take this opportunity and fix Windwalker. It's been too long.
It's hard to say. I mean, because of the choice of the tier set that is sometimes not the strongest one. You play with the best of I would say the best version of your tier set throughout the whole expansion. So it's hard like to assess whether Windwalker is underperforming, better performing, and also like this tier set hides probably the I would say the issues Babs mentioned in his post, for example, the completely absurd number of RNG.
I think it might actually highlight them a little bit.
You think so?
Ooh, dance of Chi death to aggro.
Exactly. Like if you go into a big pack with a dance proc rolling and you still have a stack from your
Yeah,
tier set, that's a giant buff to spinning crane kick.
that that's another issue. Aggro is an issue, and I mean was an issue, and is still an issue. I mean, I'll talk about the
Yes.
random, procs because obviously we remove blackout reinforcement, but
Yes.
we
That at
now
least that's a pretty significant RNG factor that's being removed, so that's good.
that's
Yeah.
one, but there are still a lot that are like
Yeah,
hiding.
Dance of Shija remains to be the most high profile RNG that's just can completely change how well you do in a pack.
Yeah.
Uh, things like you have a sizable amount of resources that is dependent on RNG, like from Glory of the Dawn and Open Palm Strikes,
Hmm.
which it's not ideal. Your Bone Dust Brew can actually fluctuate pretty heavily depending how well you proc and on which hits you proc.
Hmm.
Um, and all of those just make it kind of hard to tell what's going to happen in your rotation, especially in single target. In AoE, it's sort of less relevant because obviously Glory of the Dawn is not a thing in AoE.
Also, like in
Uh,
single target, if you play Jade Firestomp, the reset
yeah, well,
chance.
that's a very bad one, of course. The change to the animation of Jade Firestorm made it, for some reason, much harder to
Yeah.
actually verify if you are standing within the zone. This shouldn't. This is such a failure in visual design that could have easily been fixed by just adding like a semi-transparent background to the pattern.
Mm.
Just add a clear area of now you're standing in it and now you're not. But you can't make a skeleton of an animation, even though it looks pretty cool. Like I like how it looks. I don't really agree with all the links to Aztec or whatever. It looks fine, but you can't be standing in the pattern and then not be actually sure if you're touching it or not. That's really dumb.
I think Meg, it was Meg that she was the first highlighting this. Oh, obviously it was Miss Weather,
Yeah,
but
on
she
release
said
date.
it's you're on the shit, but you're not, and if
And she was just
you,
standing in the middle of the thing.
yeah,
They somehow messed up the hitbox of it or something.
yeah,
And it's hard to say if this was already the case with the previous animation. I haven't actually bought the glyph to switch back yet.
hmm,
But at least the previous iteration, as much as I didn't like how it looked like a Night Fae build, yeah, I've complained about this many times. But at least it was obvious when you were standing in it or not.
yeah. Well, that's another topic. Okay, let's go
Yes.
directly into the. I mean, they say the FAQ. It's more Q&A. That FAQ, sorry, FAQ is French. Um, so the idea we just I gave you the list roughly. I mean, maybe we can just discuss about other more general questions. So we have the questions really, focusing on monk gear, stuff like this, rotation stuff, and maybe some general stuff like is monk going to be meta, is
Yeah.
and things like this. I think we have like these three categories um, of questions.
I think
As
we can get that one out of the way pretty quickly because it is one of the most common questions asked in Peak of Serenity. Is like,
yeah.
what do you think of Monk going into season 4?
So,
And presumably is what they mean is how is it going to perform?
yes, maybe we can start with this one. So if you
Yeah.
want, what do you
Yeah.
think about Monk S4? Is it going to be meta? So what is your short answer? And then we can discuss.
Mm, Short answer is no,
Short answer is no, not meta.
but
But
I always say
yeah,
it's no but, and now we can
yeah,
discuss it. But I think the no, it's because sometimes people they just want to play meta, which is completely fine.
yeah. If you're just looking for a bottom class, you're looking in the wrong place.
Yeah.
yeah, go
Okay.
to Vengeance Demon Hunter, go to Evoker, regardless of which spec it's actually gonna end up being, and likely go to Shadow Priest if you're
And I
looking
heard
Or
for
that
new
mage
Fury
spots.
and
Warrior is looking really good as well. But
Those are just padding in Academy. That's
okay,
actually
fair enough.
bait.
short answer is no. So maybe you want to add maybe an why no, and maybe
Uh,
but, and maybe
Uh,
some like
well, the simple answer is because there are already too many classes that are just straight up better than Windwalker, and those will simply take the meta spots, and then there would be no reason to take Windwalker for your group.
mhm,
yeah, there is nothing that we are actually the best in or that we can provide for a Mythic Plus group
Yeah,
or the raid group. If we're looking at the raid group, there are specs with better single target. Well, okay, there is no spec that is better at target swapping in raid. I think we're still kings of
yes,
that.
some class
Um,
or some fight where that's very very relevant, like Echo of Notharian.
yeah, but that doesn't mean you're automatically required a raid spot because that's like super low value.
just play better, said Young.
Um,
As I said, Grill.
However, if
uh,
you don't have a Mistweaver or Brewmaster in your group, then having a monk is really powerful because you're adding the healing and damage taken auras.
yeah, that's I think something to worth mentioning. If you don't have a monk in your
Quack
raid, a
quack,
monk
bro.
is
How you doing,
absolutely
my friend?
insane.
Thank you for tuning
Um,
in. Hope your holidays are
there is
fine. I mean, your business is
basically
great.
no reason to not run a monk right now.
It's one of the guaranteed raid spots that you need to have.
Yeah.
And then for Mythic Plus, basically, our single target is good, but single target is not really like sought after. Our local target cleave is good. It is no longer broken like it was in season 3, and also this season 4 has a lot of more AOE actually than the previous season. It's definitely the most
Yes.
Yeah,
AOE heavy season that we experienced this expansion,
yeah.
and which brings us basically to the main reason we're not meta, which is our either sustained or burst
Yes.
AOE in on uncapped targets is not amazing, or
Mhm.
Right.
rather not broken,
It's not
therefore
as
not
good
not meta.
as the classes that are meta or will be meta. However, and this is where the but comes in, I suppose, is in terms of overall damage, we are probably going to be very competitive. If you're just looking at who ends up at the top of the meters at the end of the dungeon, I think we have a pretty good shot.
Maybe.
Yeah,
It's hard to
it will
say.
depend on the dungeons, I think.
Very
Yes.
strong, yeah, of course, yeah.
Like if you take, for example, I think Uldaman, there is it like Onoku. I don't know. Like heavy
Ruby has
shit.
traditionally been an insane dungeon for us because we
Yeah.
get
Yeah, Ruby or
basically
Azovolt.
on
Yeah.
cooldown touch of deaths,
Mm.
And Azovolt as well
which
is very
makes
good because it's like 5 targets ish. You don't have that much, but like for
Like,
example,
well,
Uldaman.
yeah.
you can do some pretty huge pulls in AV.
We are now actually we're gonna get to that later. Basically, in a place where Windwalker is probably better in AOE than it is in single targeting keys. To be
Mm-hmm.
honest, large
Yeah.
pulse wise. And we're also especially bursty about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um, but oh, also very much depends on the trinkets and talents you end up running. And
Yeah,
in the
like
end, it
Obviously.
still just doesn't beat the classes that can do like they're gonna do 5 to 6 million
well,
DPS next season,
I kind of see
guaranteed
it as the
on some
same way
pulls.
as Everbloom in this season. Like if you're if you're being swayed by your first impressions, then you're going into Everbloom, and the entire first area until you get to Witherbark, you're going to get absolutely smashed on the meters. Like your Fire Mage and your Shadow Priest or your Red Paladin or whatever will crush you.
Yeah.
However, by the time you get to the end of the key and you kill Yalnu, you might very well be competing with them or even beating them because
Yep.
you're just catching up on the low cleave and boss damage.
Take Red Paladin out of the equation. They are just better at every single target, count that
I
as except on the
honestly,
target.
I don't see.
I've seen some very dumb red paladin
It seems
Everblooms.
some amazing red paladins as well, but they are the minority in my experience.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah, but basically I've seen the best Windwalker performing in Everbloom, and he got beat by a red paladin by 15 to
again,
20%
I think
overall.
it's very
It,
dependent
it was
on.
not it was not pretty. It
Yeah.
was not pretty.
I think it's dependent
Grill,
on souls
Ruby
between.
also encourages funnel like Enhance and Outlaw, especially in tyrannical weeks. That is true. However, don't underestimate how powerful Windwalker is in Cleave. Or in funnel, sorry.
Mhm.
Touch of Death in itself also is funnel there because
That
you
too,
Touch of
but
Death the little mob.
dude, Thunder Fist value is amazing. It's
True.
so strong.
Yeah.
I don't know, like Outlaw. I think it's I don't know. It's something because I think Outlaw suffers from bad
I don't think
scaling, right?
Outlaw is any good next season. At least not unless they get buffed.
Really?
Outlaw is the worst spec in the game with a sizable margin. Um, a
Except
lot
France,
worse than us,
except in
for
France.
sure. Sure. So they're not gonna scale well with item level at all. Same as Red Paladin, by the way, which is why I'm expecting we're gonna catch up to Red Paladins at least
Oh,
in terms
that's
of
good.
damage.
Kiefer is strong, sure, in second
Though
boss and third, and
they have
yeah.
the legendary, which might pull them ahead again. But other than that, Outlaw and Red Paladins really do not scale well right now, which is why I don't have them on the list for being ultimate meta.
I
Fair
think,
enough.
but still don't. Well, legendary. I think we used to say beforehand, like in the previous podcast. Oh, legendary is gonna be fine. I mean, it's not going to be that strong. And actually, you can actually see reds with legendary were just blasting shit. Um,
They buffed it 1,000
yeah,
times.
they're really buffed it. So maybe you have also to look at this legendary in season 4. I just want to say about what Young said. I mean Grill said. Sorry, it's just always the same issue. Monk can perform very well, but as you said earlier, other specs will perform better than you in when they need to be like at the proper moment.
Yes.
So that's why like it's strong, and even like decision Monk was strong, but if you said, okay, you want big AoE, just call a Red Paladin or Shadow Priest now, whatever. If you want really sustain, I mean, the very bursty, strong funnel and shit, you can just call a Mage. And it's that's why Shadow Priest Mage, like, they are going to be uh, on the top, even if at the end of the day you can do better overall than them. Um, but for example, Azure Vault, I don't know, Ruby, I think it's gonna be great. Azure Vault, I think is going to be great. But like for example, in I like taking the example of Uldaman. It's just in terms of dungeon design. If you take Uldaman or for example Brackenide, well Brackenide they removed the bites, so now it's another topic. But you can see, for example, it's not really melee friendly. I remember the boss in Uldaman, the Trog one with the totem. The people were just
Oh,
standing on the roof, like the mage and the shadow priest, and they were just chilling and killing the boss without any issue. Whereas when you're like a monk, you don't have like immune, you don't have shit, so you have to go away because of the AOE stuff. You lose somehow some important DPS, and that can cost you the key when you go up to certain level. Um,
maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know, like
I think the final point that actually rules Windwalker out of meta, at least in the highest keys, that we haven't seen buffs to our survivability.
yeah,
Really?
Windwalker is a very squishy spec in high keys.
I'm not sure if I
Um,
see that too much. I'm not having that much issues. I generally like there are some meta specs that I see as much squishier than us, particularly Mage. Mage seems like that unkillable spec with their barrier and their alter time and stuff,
yeah.
but that runs out, and ours just don't.
the
I'm very
problem is that
curious.
never runs out because like for sure I guess if there's more moments of danger we are tankier, but the dungeons generally are always with the high spikes far and few between, where you just have to lift the one shot, and that's where mage is just far better at it than us, for
Yeah,
example.
and they have cheat
Maybe.
deaths as well. I mean, they have like the cauterize. So about the Nokud twin boss and last boss, because Monk has not gained much verse since season 1, and other class did after they reached DRs in other stats. They basically also
Yeah,
they
that
nerf
that
they
that
nerf the
might be a
twin.
problem,
Yeah,
but we'll
I think
see.
I'm not sure if it will be much of a problem because in terms of survivability, you're not wrong that we're probably not going to gain much more verse than our usual, like in season 3. On the other hand, that means we have more damage to gain by not having to put much more into, or not choosing to put more into verse. So there are other avenues that you can take to get more survivability. Like you can run granite scale, or you can run what's it called, resonating sphere or
Something.
whatever. Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
like pretty bad. It's pretty sad. Like the point of Grill, I get it. It's just if people used to survive, like in season one with less verse, and now they got more verse, and we were struggling surviving, even if we had like 35% of verse, or even 47%. I saw you on
Yeah,
stream. It's like
I get that point as well. But what
it's
I'm
a
getting at is
shame.
that
It's a
if you,
shame to run like a fucking tank trinket, or because
well, those tank trinkets are actually surprisingly strong.
yeah,
As in offensively,
yeah,
like
true, but
if you run rage hard, your damage loss is not that significant. You do notice it, but it's definitely not crushing or debilitating. I will still regularly beat the mages or the rats in my keys,
yes.
even when I'm running rage hard. And with rage hard, you really don't die. Like you just don't. You have a CD for everything.
Yeah, that's right. That's correct. That's correct. But that's another issue. Like you run an intricate ball tank that appears to be like offensively interesting, but it's like pretty sad. Like you can't run like a proper DPS trinket, especially now with season 4. We have like
Right.
a lot of other options than Rage Heart that
Remember what
are
I said before,
yeah,
because we don't have much of a like much room to stack more verse. Instead, we're going to be stacking more crit and
true.
mastery, which should
Yeah.
sort of compensate for that loss of
Yeah, I
damage.
think our damage will be fine. But also I think we've gone into this one long enough.
Yeah,
You're
let's
right.
go to the second question. It's gonna be a short one, like because I'm just taking what I said to you on Discord. So we talk about embellishment. I think it's a very classic one.
It's
Yeah,
also very
that's a
quick.
very short and easy one.
Yep.
Yeah. So if you want to answer this one, I think it's
Blue
BSL. You
silk
want?
line,
Seiryoku, you can. Thank you.
and
Blue
that's it.
Silken Lining.
There's nothing else
Mastery
to it.
embellishment.
You run it
The
everywhere.
the only thing that is actually worth talking about is the crafting position.
Oh yeah. Maybe
Like
if you want to.
short term, the best is probably to start by craft. I assume we're gonna get a lot of sparks, right?
Yeah.
Let
So
me just
I
put
I,
my
I
list here.
guess we're gonna start the first crafts going on neck and ring
Okay.
because those are basically without agility, which means they provide the biggest damage increase to craft there. But especially for keys, the neck and ring provide pretty solid, especially the ring, extremely solid defensive options.
Hmm.
Once you manage to get yourself the other ring, Seal of the Earnest Chosen, is it that one? Or
Mm-hmm.
is it the
That's Aeronog.
Eggnog?
Yeah.
Eggnog.
It's something of the Brood Keeper.
Yeah,
Yeah,
something like
yeah, I meant the damage ring, for example, to
Oh
unlock the
yeah.
fire shield,
Yeah.
basically.
That's
That combination is extremely powerful for
seal
survivability.
seal of filial duty.
oh yeah,
Filial Duty is the defensive ring. Yep.
yeah,
Yes.
And the same applies for the neck, the Urable necklet from Volcaros. That's also a decent amount of survivability that we will be able to trigger. And if you go for Mythic Plus, I would just swap the crafting positions from neck and ring if you have both of those
yeah.
to wrist and waist, I guess, which is the lowest
Yeah.
agility positions.
And if you absolutely need to get a combat wrist, I suppose then feet would be the next slot or cloak.
Maybe cloak. No.
Yeah, cloak for keys, I guess, for raids. That's a different topic.
Yeah, because you're not going to use a combat wrist for a raid anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and then there's some low aggie spot, I guess, where you will slot in the food embellishment.
Yes.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, we
Whatever
just
ends up
yeah we
remaining.
so crafting options. Yeah, I think it's pretty clear. I was about today. I was
Say.
about to say Aaron single start. What is
I
fucking?
have
What
no
is
idea what you're
fucking
saying.
waste better? What is this
Waist.
beat? Waste? Oh, waste. Wrist.
Wrist.
Oh yeah.
Single start wrist. Oh, single stat wrist. Okay, yes. I was about to say, aren't single stat wrists better? No, not if it's like depends on your sims, right? If you aren't particularly low on one stat, then those single stat wrists aren't going to sim any better than dual stat wrists.
So what about by the way the as you said we are hitting pretty like easily the verse DR, so we might
Yeah, I think a
for the
lot of
maybe
your
the stats, yeah.
crafting options are just going to go into mastery.
Yeah, it will depend on the rest of your gear though, because I
Yeah, of
think we
course.
pick up like a bit of extraverse and stuff. But like also the ring, the defensive ring from Diona is extremely mastery heavy.
Yeah, I think so,
Uh,
yeah.
but it will just happen. I think the best sim I have right now has like 7k verse or something.
Oh yeah.
Or something around that. It's not that important. The Sims will be able to tell you accurately if you want to
Well,
optimize for
actually,
dash, and
anyway,
if you need more
the
survivability,
classic is
you will
still.
always just put on more verse anyway.
I mean, the classic is always verse crit and mastery, basically.
Please put mastery in front of crit. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true that now the mastery has gained.
Mastery in front of crit.
Yeah, and then the crits. Yeah, that's it.
You
This,
that master twice.
Yep. It depends on
yeah,
the obviously
this.
the gear and obviously just sim. Okay, I know like this question is a sim question. Like it's the I would say like, the short answer would be sim,
Yes.
but I would say it's interesting to like you have to consider all the options. Journa's Ring, Volkoros or I don't know the name, the worm boss.
Ouroboros necklace.
The yeah the
Necklace?
neck.
Yeah,
Ouroboreal necklace, even.
Yes, so I think
Ouroboreal.
it's important to like having in mind we have a lot of gear available, so it's not sometimes as easy as it seems like, because there are some um interactions, like for example the ring and neck have a good synergy together, but it wasn't. I mean, yeah, I mean that's interesting. Let me check other questions. I think trinkets. It's probably the next one because it's the witch embellishment gear.
That's
Yeah.
gonna be a longer one.
Okay,
Yeah,
maybe
it will take a little bit
just
more.
maybe about the ring. Would you consider running a Ranog ring or not?
Yes.
Yes, especially
Uh,
because of lava ring.
uh, like Aeronaut Ring is just a really solid, even if you can't trigger the effect properly. It's still just a crit verse ring with heavy verse. So,
I,
it's good for us.
I like this short answer. Yes.
Yeah.
What's our fire damage to proc journal ring? Die.
Helm
Yes, the
enchant.
head enchant stays and does
Yeah.
fire damage. That's our
It does
main way to
it does
proc.
shadow flame damage, which counts as fire damage.
Okay.
And also Jeroen will be our other main way to proc it.
Uh, as relevant as that is, yeah. It's like this
It
every
is
two
kind of it's like 10% more
every
uptime
two
almost.
it's like every 2.5 minutes or something, right?
Yeah, the ring doesn't proc that often. So
No,
like
not that
it,
often, but more
it's
frequently
a,
than Jarun, at least.
yeah, of course, but it's something. So like if I remember clearly on single target, the ring is like 0.5% of the damage, which is not terrible, to be totally honest with you.
Yeah.
It's not enough
Well, in this
for
case,
where Flaring Cowl comes back
oh yeah,
somewhere
no.
in the
Like
season
Flaring
one.
Cowl was
It's
nerfed
not
so
that
hard in
good.
season one that it's never coming back.
Yeah, because it's been nerfed like to the ground.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, okay. Let's keep going to the. I like this format because it's like very simple question, very simple answer, and then we can discuss and justify the answer. So I think yeah, the biggest one is trinkets now.
Yes.
So maybe for the trinkets, it's let's say to simplify the issue. I mean the issue of talking about trinkets, we can split raid. So and Mythic Plus maybe like if you want to play fully raid, Mythic Plus, fully, and maybe we can maybe it's gonna be easier to start with. Maybe like for raid. So which trinkets are we aiming for raid, for example?
Only the best
Mm,
ones.
Yeah.
yeah, so the best ones are likely going to be Ashes
Yes.
combined with either Torch or Brand, depending on how long the fight will be.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, brand. Yeah. or
Uh,
Uh,
Brand
shit.
is Brand is just insanely overtuned, right? Or quote unquote insanely overtuned, I guess, because it does seem to be intended this way. The main drawback is that it requires a significantly long boss time or kill time to get that value out of it. Like, if the fight is less than, I would say, 4.5 minutes or so, you probably shouldn't risk it.
yeah. However, there are some trinkets that are also like not terrible, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Notably, for example, call to dominance will
Yeah.
be is generally not bad
Hmm.
and will on some fights be extremely powerful.
Yeah.
Where I'm sure we will 100% run it. I guess the most popular example of this will be Sarkaraf,
Yeah.
where with the haste buffs, CDD will scale out of control.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
I also expect the same to apply for Smolderon.
I would think so.
Um, with especially coming back to mind that season 4 is likely going to have faster boss kill times, so closer to the bloodlust window, where you're going to go in with pot with 10 stacks of Call to Dominance, unless you're lucky, because you're holding zone for 30
Mm-hmm.
seconds.
Any
Um,
actually any buff damage
and
amplification phase.
literally one of your cool enemies. Yeah,
Ollie, you're, you're
and
starting to lag
Ashes.
a bit.
I'm sorry, but yeah.
Yeah. There is
There
also an
there might be
honorable
other
mention.
fights Call to Dominance is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go.
Yeah, there was also the honorable mention of Spiteful Storm, which is also quite good on, like, it's only pure single target because it does lose value if you have any other targets that can, like, leech off of it. But if it's a pure single target that lasts quite a long time, such as, I mean, I guess, no, not Frog wouldn't even count. What is a long single target fight?
It's also just not bad on the fights, though. It's just a good passive trinket if you
Yeah.
don't have Signet Brand.
Like, the only reason
Signet.
we're not really
Like,
recommending it is because you have all the choice in the world, right? You can pick whichever trinket you want. So whenever you play Spiteful Storm, you might as
like
well play Torch or Brand. So why bother with Spiteful?
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Okay, yeah, so it's brand Signet. I don't know. I would just put Signet, I think, for more clarity. I think
Yeah,
Signet
for
brand.
sure.
Or Ashes and Grief Torch. Okay, we talk about this. So obviously those trinkets they are found in raids, all of those. We
Which
have
means they can be bought with
yeah, so
bullions.
that's nice. So obviously this question was assuming you are a raider and you just P2 shield. Indeed, it's just like you are a raider. You don't go into any mythic plus.
Yeah.
If now we think about mythic plus trinkets, I don't think maybe except fragments.
Well, okay, so we did actually think about that, right? Like, should we
Yeah.
make a tier list for people that only do keys? The thing is, in this particular season, the people who only do keys will still be getting bullions, so they can still just buy trinkets.
Yeah, no,
So
yeah,
we don't,
no. We
we don't
assume.
actually limit ourselves.
Yeah. We don't limit. Like if, for example, you said in raid, a mythic plus, like in the sorry, in the other way. So if you just only mythic plus, because you can still get those trinkets, there is no, like you have to say you can use those.
Right.
So let's say, for example, in this slide, it's if I don't know, you only raid and buy any luck, you get those, or you just buy with bullions. And now for Mythic Plus, is going to be just buy those trinkets and shut the fuck up.
Yeah, basically, like, there are essentially no dungeon trinkets that are better than raid trinkets for raid or for M plus for that matter.
Okay, so let me just put not maybe which trink. Let's say, is there any good trinket
There is a
in Mythic
difference.
Plus? Let's
Uh,
there
but
is a difference. There's actually also a talent difference, like
right.
in a way,
yeah.
a bit one,
Are
a
you
small one.
asking? Is there any good trinket from M plus or for M plus?
I would say that are droppable in Mythic Plus dungeons. Yeah, in
No,
dungeons. Yeah. I would say
4 keys.
droppable.
no,
Not
from keys.
droppable. Yeah, from keys. From. It's not for keys. It's from. So like
So
No.
Basically, no. There is no trinket in from the M plus pool that is just straight up beaten by a ray trinket.
No, sorry, ray trinkets are better. And now we can
Yeah.
have the next question, which is if you play only keys, so which trinket are we aiming for? Mythic Plus.
Counter question: are you running Storm Earth and Fire or are you running
Okay,
Serenity?
so let's say okay, let's split this question in two. Let's start maybe with Serenity because it's maybe
That's the more complex one.
It's more
If we
complex
start
one.
with
Okay,
Storm Earth
I
and
fuck this.
Fire,
Okay, let's go
I
easier.
sort of suspect that it might still be the more popular one, to be honest.
Okay, let's
yeah,
start
I
with.
think this is something we will talk about after. I think we'll
Yeah,
just give.
So,
sure.
which trinkets are we aiming for Mythic Plus for keys if we play Storm of Fire? Let's go like this.
There's one that stands out. Seiryoku, you can name it.
Yeah,
It's
it's called
pretty obvious.
dominance. Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, what did you say?
You,
Sorry.
I think you're lagging quite hard, Kholer, because your reactions are a bit late.
No,
um,
I'm not. It's fine.
okay,
Let me check.
sure.
Oh.
It's called the
Oh
dominance,
yeah.
the class trinket.
So this one is mandatory basically.
If you're playing SCF, yes.
Yes, I would say. Okay, let's say mandatory, with like quotes. Okay, let's say you can buy it with bullions, if it's the. So this trinket is okay. This is S tier with Storm of Fire.
Yes.
By far. Okay. What is next?
You would combine it probably either with uh,
There's a
so
couple choices.
yeah, you can essentially choose somewhat equally between torch,
Okay.
either the essence or icon. Those are basically the same thing, or ashes. Those are all very relatively equal options.
Okay.
And the pocket anvil.
Yeah, but I don't recommend using that because that's just gonna lose its stacks all the time. So I don't know.
Okay, yeah, maybe it's a bit overstimming.
Yeah,
I don't know if we're actually gonna lose stack. If we lose stacks, then yeah. But for now, it's not.
yeah.
Okay.
But
Combined with torch, chromatic essence, icon. Okay.
yeah,
This
a
is
mini note on
considering.
ashes. A mini note on ashes is that it's not like fully on the same value theoretically as torch, essence, and icon, but it does provide the value of increasing your burst damage
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's say that's why I
significantly.
say relatively
So
because
so even though it's not completely equal on overall damage, it's definitely far closer than it was in season 3.
yeah.
Um, which makes it, which means I have no problem recommending it.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
It Ashes was already very popular in season 3, but in our opinion, for the wrong reasons. It just looked better than it was, but in season 4, it will actually be that good.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Quick question because we talk about Mythic Plus. I think I know it's for Storm of Fire, but I think I would just put on the same slide because I think this question
Yeah,
will
go for it.
go a lot. It's Boon.
ooh, boon.
Well, that's one has a short answer. No.
No,
Because I think this question.
Boone.
the answer would have been no before the nerf. By the way,
Yeah, basically. Like, so Boone was already a bit of a weird one, right? Because it's super dangerous to use. Like, yes, you can play around with escape from reality, and you can like transcendence out of a dangerous mechanic and then back in to finish your channel. Uh, which is still a very dangerous way to use it. You could pop a couple of defenses and live through most things. The thing is, it's just not strong enough anymore to warrant it. Like, it got nerfed by 25% last week or 2 weeks ago, and that just kind of kills any like risk taking potential.
Guess it's dangerous and
this is
giga.
also a short throwback to what Sayoko said, with that our damage will be very good if, because we are probably one of the few melees where it actually says, and even said pre-nerf, hey, you don't want to boon for damage. You have better options.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That says something when stats beat boon.
exactly. Like
That's
something like
pretty
Icon and Essence
big
being better
statement.
than Boon. That's kind of unusual for us, right? In season 1, we wouldn't even consider that.
I think it's hard because you will probably be, facing a wall when season 4 will come, and people would say, but Boon does giga damage on pack.
Oh yeah, it definitely does.
It does, but again, its question is probably if you want to have a high number very locally, or if you want like to have the best damage profile as you can do, you can have.
Just run ashes if you want.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Like in season one, that was the real question: is the damage that Boone provides, is that worth it? And in season one, the answer was yes. You know,
yeah,
arguably,
yeah.
it was just as dangerous to use, and the damage just was good enough to use. There were no other stat trinkets that provided us with the same amount of value. But with the nerfed amount of value, considering that it's a 3 minute cooldown, right?
Yeah.
It looks really good when you use it, but the overall contribution is not high enough anymore.
Hmm. I see. So about the stat trinkets, I guess it's more for AoE, I would say. If you want slightly,
No,
no, it's just relatively equal.
yeah,
Yeah, because Boon doesn't really do anything on single target.
Yeah, true. Mm.
it's
And
fine, but
also,
it's
the dungeons have a bunch of AoE,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
bunch of
Obviously,
just
obviously, we talk.
AoE back to back.
Yeah, obviously.
But yeah, that answers that one, I guess.
mhm.
Okay.
And I guess this makes the next question also very easy. You don't even have to delete the line, because Serenity is very similar to this, but Call to Dominance is not mandatory.
Yeah, it's the same trinkets except for Call to Dominance, which kind of falls off a bit.
Yeah,
Not
why I wanted to
mandatory.
start with Storm Earth and Fire, because it makes this very easy to
And
answer
I
now.
haven't really delved into the APL, but I assume that it's regardless of whether you sync your Serenity with Zuan or not, right?
I have tried for a long time to test how and in what way syncing is worth.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, for Serenity, if you run Call to Dominance and another 2 minute stat trinket, it is worth sync Serenity.
Yeah.
If you run just one unused trinket, so just Call to Dominance or just Ashes, it is not worth syncing Serenity. It is close
And if you run,
overall. It is
uh,
close. So, like, if you really want to prioritize it, you can, and I'm not going to be against it. But the sim won't do it because it's like a minor loss of like 0.5% or something. It's not the 3 plus percent we had in season three.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Um,
if you do run like Call to Dominance and Ashes, and you sync your Serenity with Zuan, how does that compare with like the best performing SEF build?
uh, it is definitely a bit worse, but
Okay.
not a lot.
So yeah, again for
So,
Serenity,
so
you
like the
want to
Serenity,
desynchro.
the APL will automatically sync Serenity for Ashes and Call to Dominance if you wear both. So you actually get realistic results from that,
Okay,
Very
by the way,
but
nice.
it
just
won't sync it otherwise.
I mean, we can talk upon this
And
after.
also, a special mention for Serenity, before we forget to say it, is going to go out to Iridius Fragment and Puzzle Box.
Oh, yeah.
Two names you probably didn't expect to hear. Quack.
Yeah, true.
Um, Iridius Fragment and Puzzle Box actually work pretty well with Serenity if, and that's a pretty big if your main goal is just to maximize your Serenity cooldown damage every 90 seconds.
Yeah. So if you use your
I
Serenity on
will
cooldown, and then you
push
have
the
either puzzle box or a radius
PR
fragment to
report
use with it.
time. Um, you just rotate one of those, Puzzle Box or Fragment.
Yeah.
Um, Little note on that, Fragment is actually by far the better trinket than Puzzle Box. Puzzle Box is quite nerfed. So,
Yeah, I
but
mean it's a
that's
different.
a possibility.
Yeah.
That possibility, if you want to maximize your damage every 90 seconds, you can run um,
Mhm.
Puzzle Box Fragment. However, it's an honorable mention because it isn't very great for your overall damage.
Mm.
That's especially your single target will be hurting a lot from this.
Yeah.
I will say it here.
Yeah.
Um.
And it probably also loses quite a bit if you can't use your Serenity on cooldown every
Yeah,
time.
so do you want to use Serenity on
Yeah,
cooldown, or you want to synchronize with Zuen?
that too.
It still depends on which strings you have, Quack. If you
Yeah.
have your Ashes and your Call to Dominance, you will sync. If you don't have any or either of them, then you do not sync.
Makes
So if
sense.
you only have one of them, then you do not sync.
So let's say Ashes plus CTD equal Xuan plus Serenity. If not,
If you're
desync.
running the puzzle box fragments for some reason, because we neither of us really recommend it, but if you want to do that, you should absolutely not sync, but because your whole point is to use
Yeah,
Serenity on cooldown.
obviously. I think that this one, I would just maybe put a special question for this. I think,
Yeah.
do we synchronize Xuan with Serenity? Short answer is yes, only if you have Ashes plus CTD.
Yeah.
Basically,
The long answer is technically, if you just run Ashes, you can sync it. It's going to be a minor loss, but
Is
yeah,
it
it
still
doesn't.
that's
It will
true?
not make me mad.
Does it still apply in raid as well, or is it raid? You can sync it either
R-
way.
Raid is absolutely syncing.
Yeah.
If you have any 2 minute stat drinks, it is always syncing
Yeah.
in raid.
sync in raid. If you
Because in raid you're very likely to run something like Ashes anyway. So
yeah,
Yeah.
I would just put say sync in raid just for simplify
Yep.
answer. People can just
yeah.
go back to this question for next.
Yeah, and obviously all of these things will be mentioned in the Peak of Serenity
Obviously,
guide with
yeah,
all of their exceptions and notes added to it. So
obviously I know, but people, sometimes they just prefer go and listen shit than reading.
yeah,
But obviously that this is not something like completely off and something people will just. I mean, they will have the guides and all the information on Peak Serenity website when things are just proper and needed, I would say.
yeah, and hopefully
Um,
when tuning is done.
yeah. So we talk about trinkets, rings, stats. We talk about okay builds. Just quickly, maybe the classic question: Serenity or Storm of and Fire.
They are so
That's a long
close.
one.
It
They are. That's a long question. Um,
that what maybe
in my
what
personal opinion, I have to say that Storm Earth and Fire has an edge this season, but it doesn't have enough of an edge to say. Let me say you are not allowed to run Serenity.
Yeah, and I think
So
Serenity still has the same benefit as it does now, where you gain a little bit of boss damage, which could be very relevant in your keys.
yes, especially when we look at the talent builds that will be run.
Yeah.
Serenity does have an advantage there, but Storm Earth and Fire definitely has an advantage in the AoE component,
Mhm.
which we will also be able to show.
yeah.
Um,
It's,
and because of its ability to take advantage of Call to Dominance, I think Storm Earth and Fire is also very popular as a burst option, because I think running Serenity with Ashes and Call to Dominance will actually not be possible. I think you will just die of aggro every pull.
I
yeah,
suppose
true.
we'll have to find
That
that
that, that,
out.
that,
Yeah.
that that's what I observed in PTR.
Yeah.
So I don't think this is so that's another point I give Storm of Fire. I think it has a small overall damage component. This even showcases in that round where, as a background explanation, if you do less single target damage, the boss will live longer in dungeon route.
yes.
Whereas if you do more, it will die faster, of course. So like the value of single target damage is very high in dungeon route, and Storm of Fire still wins there,
Okay.
indicating that its AoE is actually quite good.
Okay.
If we go to like actual numbers, we can go into those later because I provided some sims, of
Yeah,
course.
we will look at the sims just after. I just want to finish quickly those questions, so we can have time to
But
discuss
yeah,
about
if
this. I think I mean this Serenity versus Summer of Fire has always been like in Dragonflight, especially last season's a topic. It's very close anyway. It can also you can say it depends on composition. You can say if you want more single target with trinkets, some AoE, some stuff like this. So I think it's you can play both, and I think it's nice to be able to play both. To be like a bit, um,
a bit more
adaptable. Yeah,
flexible.
flexible indeed. And maybe one question that is very important and expected, and that will probably lead to, lead people to choose Serenity or Storm of Fire is about priority and rotation. So maybe we can just dig into this quickly. Which one do you want to start with? Do you want to start with Song of Fire, or do you want to start with Serenity as priority and shit like this? So the idea of this
Uh,
question, because I know it can be long, is to
Oh,
provide.
as for what
Oh,
that's a very short question actually.
oh boy,
Um,
you are so lagging.
yeah, you're lagging, bro.
okay, then Seiryoku, you do it, but
All right.
it's not
So
a
the
very hard
question is
question to
just
answer, I think.
whether SCF or Serenity will be the main pick, right?
Yeah, no, I would say about rotation now, just because
Oh, sorry.
because the question about Serenity or Storm of Fire, the main pick, it's as Kholer said, it's small lead for Storm of Fire, but you can run
Yeah.
Serenity, and obviously with tuning and shit, this question can be modified, and there is no like firm answer about this question because it
Yeah.
depends on a lot of parameters that are out of our reach right now: composition, weak, dungeon, etc. But the question
In
now
terms
is,
of rotation
yeah.
difference, yeah. So like obviously Serenity, in season three, Serenity was the like ironically maybe was the simpler choice because the tier sets which just made your blackout kick proc from every free spinning crane kick during Serenity made it a very straightforward rotation. We just alternating spinning crane kick and blackout kick, and maybe throw in a Fist of Fury under certain conditions, and of course Strike of the Windlord. But most of your AoE would just be SEK BOK.
Yeah.
That's no longer the case in Season 1 because we no longer have that synergy between SEK and BOK. So what you're going to have now is mostly you rotate your spinning crane kick and blackout kick until you have, or for at most three spinning crane kicks, I think, and then cast your Fist of Fury to reactivate that enhanced kick buff.
Yeah, I mean, like it's playing around. I would say the philosophy is playing uh around
Playing around your tier set,
the
yeah.
three enhanced kick.
Yeah.
So maybe you want to, yeah, maybe you want to build those three kicks before sending Serenity.
Uh, Sorry, what? If you want to get your FOF stacked,
Yeah, so basically, maybe do you want to press Fist of Fury before Serenity to get your stacks?
I don't think that will matter too much because it will sort of balance out anyway. Like, yeah, as Kola said, no, it's not relevant.
Okay.
Uh, Fist of Fury is just going to be like your highest prio damage spell during Serenity.
Okay,
That
press
alone
for
will get you to a couple of enhanced spinning crane kicks, of course.
press for structure difference and
Yeah.
weave with, well,
It also
SK
means that
block.
there's no particular need to spend all of your enhanced kicks. To be clear, like
Yeah.
you don't have to you don't have to worry about spending all of those. It means that every one of your spinning crane kicks will be enhanced if you do this.
All your three kicks, whatever. And also, do you about the fourth cancel
Sorry. Oh,
the
canceling.
clip? Yeah.
I don't actually know.
What about the
Is there
clip?
any FOF clipping, Color? I would assume not because FOF is just really strong.
The same as usual. Okay.
Okay, yeah. So whenever a higher priority spell comes up, you clip your FOF only if Serenity is active.
So basically, the highest, in that case,
In
highest
I
prior.
assume like we haven't really worked out the entire priority
Yeah,
list yet,
obviously.
but
So let's say, for
it's
example, it's on progress, but
probably strike and dance,
yeah,
I would imagine.
probably I would say strike of Windlord, and
Yeah,
wasn't
makes
worth.
sense.
I tried full channel, wasn't worth. Okay, so it's okay. Let's say first we clip, plus enhanced
I
SK.
don't think enhanced SEK will count. Yeah, I think only dance.
Oh, dance. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, plus dance. Yeah, so it's basically the same as we used to.
Yeah.
And then you can just weave between spinning cranky blackout kick to, I would say, consume your kicks, your hands kick, and then you press fourth when it's up.
Yes.
Press fourth.
Yep, I'm back.
Welcome
Welcome
back.
back when it's up. Let's say this is for Serenity. Rotation events for Serenity.
Is there any target count you think where a non-buffed spinning crown cake will take priority over Fist of Fury? And I don't mean an enhanced cake, but I mean Dance of Chi-Chi.
I mean, this I think
Um,
it's
I do not.
you. I think you need
I do
more.
not think so.
Yeah,
No, only if the target like die the next global.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
no.
I think it's nice to have this first guidelines. Press Fist of Fury when it's up. Clip as usual. Press Fist of Fury to activate your 3 enhanced kick. And also, like, there is no need
Yeah,
to press all your 3 kicks. And also, there is no need to prepare, I would say, your 3 kicks before sending Serenity. There is no, like, special, I would say, uh,
The passive, like with
Serenity
the
can't
whole
even
the whole
change that
criticism
much.
about the tier set was that it's a passive effect, and that doesn't really change your Serenity.
yeah.
It like the priority list is arguably different, but the main thing is press FOF on cooldown, and that alone will make every spinning crane kick after that enhanced.
I think press Fist of Fury when it's up. It's probably the biggest advice and
Yeah.
the why.
Yeah, that's actually the one thing that you can put on this sheet. The only actual change that I made for Serenity is that every Serenity starts with a Fist of Fury now, including the opener.
Regardless of whether it is buffed by 2 or 3 kicks beforehand, right?
Yep. Yeah. Even the single target opener starts Serenity with a Fist of Fury now, and
Yeah.
not with a Target of the Windlord or a Rising Sun Kick.
And that's even
So
single target?
yeah, that's single target. Was a
Alright.
pretty significant gain too.
Oh, interesting.
If
And but then
if
in
you
I assume in single target you're also canceling for like Rising Sun Kick, right?
yeah, you just cancel on the next global.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think it's clear. I think. What about maybe Storm of and Fire? I think it's a bit me more. The rotation in season 3 was probably a bit more was complex actually. There are a lot of things, so maybe I would say just play normally. But
Yeah, it's
Summer
basically
and Fire is basically remove the lines from season 3 and play on.
yeah, it's Storm of the Fire is a flat damage buff, which does not change your rotation at all, or at least not your priority. I suppose it changes your opener because when you don't have your 5 stacks of Marks of the Crane and everything can still be applied with Skyreach, that's still relevant, but that's only for the opener and not for your subsequent SCF casts.
okay, I think that's clear. Obviously, they will have more. Obviously, just look at. I think it's just the idea of those questions is not to provide a complete detailed, rotation priority system. Is just to have beforehand the feeling about the philosophy behind those two builds. So basically, some of as you said, is just a flat damage buff, so you play normally. And I think this tier set also really simplifies the things because it's so natural to
Yeah.
to send Fist of Fury, to send Resin Sun Kick when you need that it will just go. Maybe we will see some opener um, optimization, but at the end of the day, I think the philosophy is very easier now comparing to season 3.
I think that's what I like about the season 1 tier set is that it really puts a high emphasis on just pressing your Fist of Fury every time it comes off cooldown,
Yeah.
which I feel like is what Fist of Fury should be.
So
Yeah.
my last question for this Q&A before we go into more details for people that are interested in sims and comparison, and I will let Kholer the lead for this. I mean, you can just show me what I should put on Twitch, and we can discuss about this. The last question is the bullion spending, because this one is very important, as we said earlier. So what would be the best, I would say, bullion, so it's dinar, order to spend?
Let's just call it bullion because I mean that's what the game calls it, so we might
Bullion,
as well.
maybe for people that are not,
Seiryoku, I'm gonna let you take the lead on
Sure.
this one. I have not done a lot of Diner prep. I just know the very first one because that's the obvious one.
Yeah,
I
mean,
think after that there's a lot of discussion.
Yeah, basically. And I will preface this by saying that I am both a raider and an M plus pusher. So my priority is based on like the best overall purchases, not fully focusing on raid and not fully focusing on M plus. The best purchase, the very first purchase you should do is Jeroen, Uh, it's a very strong weapon. It's your weapon for the rest of the tier. It's going to be your main source of damage. Your second one, in my opinion, should be Grief Torch, and that is because while it's not necessarily your strongest trinket uh, in any situation, it is usually present in your strongest sets. Like it's usually your second strongest in your long fights, in your short fights, and in your keys.
Yes.
So I think if you take Grief Touch, you can just use that for the rest of the season, even if you might eventually replace it with like a passive trinket for your overall key damage or something. It's still very good to have. Um, After that comes Ashes, because then you have your Ashes and Torch combo, which will be your strongest one in raid for most fights. Because in season 4, it's quite likely that most fights will be quite short, or at least shorter than we had in the first 3 seasons, because it's just like a bit more balance in our favor. We probably grow stronger faster than the bosses, got buffed. Which means that even fights that used to be long enough for something like Brand or Spiteful Storm probably or could not be that long anymore in season 4.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that Torch will just be your play anyway. After that, this is a bit of a hard one. It's either Ominous Essence or Icon. And honestly, whichever you pick is sort of the same. I would say just follow your sims. This will be your pick for your key damage. Like if you're going into M plus and you want to get a slightly better
Mm-hmm.
Grief Torch replacement, then this would be it. Uh, After that, you have your Call to Dominance,
Yep.
which you could arguably put on 4 as well, but that's gonna be up to you, I suppose. Uh, Call to Dominance was the Storm of Fire. Oh yeah, this was something that I had to mention. I still think that Serenity will be a popular pick
Mm-hmm.
in keys. I think people will very much be figuring out which one they like best. If you decide to pick Stormwrath and Fire for your keys, you might want to pick your Call to Dominance before your Icon or Essence. So you would be swapping 4 and 5.
Yeah, let's put like this.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then finally your Signet Brand for the
Yeah.
longer fights, which, as I said, is probably going to be a little rare.
That's interesting. So obviously you can adapt your spend depending if you really want to go full Mythic Plus, full raid. You can just go back to the slides with Mythic Plus and raid, and maybe you can just choose. But I guess here the idea is first is the weapon, regardless, and then is trinkets, and you can mix and match, depending obviously of depending on what you actually drop, because
Yeah.
there is no way to purchase a Griftosh if you have already one. And if you completely go into Mythic Plus or Raid, just, well, I think it's a good. This list is not like the Bible, but I think it gives
It's
a.
not. This is what I plan to do. This is
Yeah,
not a. This
yeah,
is what you should do, I guess. You like after this, or even during this, you have to decide when you're going to buy your things like Seal of Dearness.
yes.
What was it called? Like your Aeronarch ring and your Dearna ring. And even your Boreal Necklet from Volcross. Those are things that I think are considerably lower priority than trinkets, but you could make the argument that if you only play keys, then you might only need like your Grief Torch and Call to Dominance, for example. That could be a very solid trinket combination, and then you could skip the other trinkets to go straight for like the Aeronarch ring or the Volcross neck. Those are decisions that you have to make yourself, depending on how you play.
Also going to depend on how you are expecting to get loot. So
Yeah.
like Call to Dominance is likely an extremely contested trinket
Hmm.
compared to Ashes, for example.
Yeah.
There's
All of the
not
warlocks will
that
want
many
that.
decks with 2 minute classes, whereas Call to Dominance is gonna be farmed by warlocks until days on end.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and of course, everything moves up if you get another trinket of there without having to buy it from the bullion,
Right.
which brings Aeronok and Absorb Shield Ring faster into play.
Which is also sort of
Um,
why I put the Seal of Diurna so low, because like Aranok is the first boss. Every time you do Vault, you're going to be killing that. It
Yeah,
is a very rare drop, but I still think you're probably going to see that several times before you need to buy it.
obviously, yeah. Last question. I just want to go quickly so we can go into the Sims. I think we didn't talk about Bundesbrew, as I think it's a completely different topic for the build. So
Honestly, not so much. It's basically just if you play Storm of the Fire, you can play Bonus Brew, and you could play that with Serenity, but probably not worth it.
it's close.
It's
I,
close,
I
yeah.
think I think we're about to see in The Sims that it basically is
yeah,
very simple for keys. If you run Storm Earth and Fire, you should run Bone Dust Brew in basically all dungeons. And if you run Serenity, you can run Bone Dust Stew, but you don't have to. Yeah.
okay. Can
Kind of the
run.
same as now,
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, for Serenity, for Storm Earth and Fire, it's definitely a bit different because Bonus Brew has definitely gained power season 4.
Mhm.
mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I think we cover all the really classic questions. I think like it's very clear. I hope the people will just look at those before, but they won't. But I guess even for me, it's very useful. So those slides I will just put on the in YouTube with the links. Okay, people can just go directly and see the short answer and everything. So now that we got this, if people are interested, they can stay. So we have like on a 35 minutes encore, hein? Ok? On a 35 minutes. Mais 20, 40, mais on a commencé à la bourre. Yeah, okay. It's just we have 35 minutes. 35.
Alright.
We have 35 minutes.
We're gonna
Yeah,
take
yeah,
an
yeah, yeah, yeah,
hour,
yeah, yeah.
but don't tell
No,
her
no, no,
that.
no, 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 no,
I'm
no.
gonna make this extra long.
So the goal here, we are going a bit more into details and about the Sims now, and maybe more data. So maybe I'll let you talk about those Sims. I have the Excel sheets, and I have to go probably on the background Sims, right? So I can show people
Yeah,
those Sims. Which one do you want to
yeah,
start
the
with?
background since and any topic that you want to talk about, and then I can direct you.
Maybe
Um,
we can start with I would say the raid one. I think it's so maybe
the raid one.
yes. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess the most standard stuff is gonna be the 5 minute trinket overview. I guess that's gonna be
Yeah.
the second link from the top.
Okay, let me put here something so it's in depth.
As a short explanation, you're about to see basically what is a Top Gear sim with every trinket in the game that you will have access to in season 4, compared against each other, and the top combinations will show at the top. And
Okay,
yeah,
can you
this is
can
going to be
okay we can.
a very very long sim, of course. So
Mhm.
if Quack decides to go through, we're about to see a bunch
Oh
of
yeah, there
stuff.
are a lot of things here. Oh my god, yeah. Woo.
But um, that's the good thing that after a certain amount of trinkets, the gap between them is so small that we don't actually have to look any further.
I
So we
would
only look at like
probably
the top.
turn off the relative DPS checkbox because a difference of 0.3% doesn't mean anything to most people, I think, but a
Yeah.
difference of like 2k may.
Yeah, that's your choice. I personally, I've grown accustomed to relative DPS, but that's just me.
I think this is more
But
specific.
yeah, just turn it off. There's a little button on
Yeah,
the top right.
You did.
I did. Yeah, it's fine. So here we can see the sim. So this is for raid and
Yeah,
pure single. It's
this is for a 5 minute single target fight.
okay.
Yes.
Um, so basically, you can see the top simming combination is at the top, which is Ashes and Signet Brand, because 5 minutes in theory is long enough for Signet Brand to actually do damage.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Then you can also see why we put Spiteful Storm on the list, because if you don't have a Signet Brand, then Spiteful Storm is actually good.
Yeah.
Um,
Quick question about
and then
this
at the
this brand because I've seen yesterday on Fire Rack the variance of this trinket is pretty high. Sometimes it's just
It is very high, yes.
it's
so.
very high.
Is it like something like normalized? I mean,
Well, everything is normalized in keys because there's so many iterations that it takes the average of.
I was talking
Like
more about
if you scroll up,
this
what sorry?
raid fight. Is it like assuming you build your stacks? I would say in 2 minutes, in 3 minutes?
That's not how you should see it. Like, there's no assumptions being made.
Okay.
If you scroll up a little bit to the sim details,
Yeah.
uh, yeah,
Yeah.
your stream is behind a little bit. All right, so you see
Yeah.
how there it says 12,059 iterations. It means that it ran the combinations 12,000 times,
Yeah.
and it just took as realistic scenarios as it could, right? So it just said, if the trinket has a, I don't know, on every ability has a 5% chance of giving you a stack, then it's rolling a dice, and like 1 out of 20 is giving you a stack. It's being as realistic to in-game values as it can.
Okay.
So the sim has essentially the same variance as you will see in Raid. Sometimes it's going to do a lot, sometimes it's going to do very little.
Obviously, yeah.
But because it ran so many iterations and is taking the average of all of those iterations, it's giving you this like the most statistically likely result,
Mm-hmm. I
or
see.
the most statistically averaged result.
I
Yeah.
see.
And I guess if we so basically the sim has a modeled signet brand to always be different every time, but have the average
Oh
of
yeah.
it,
Yeah, the
of
average, yeah.
how often it procs or how
Okay.
fast it procs. So in some iterations it will do like 10% of your damage, and in some iterations it will only do 2%.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
That's how it works in real life, and that's how it works in the iterations, but it will just add up to be everything.
Mm-hmm.
average out.
Okay.
Now, yeah, it will average out correctly. So if you look at the yeah, perfect that you scroll down a bit. If you look at the trinkets, there's some combinations that I would like people to memorize and keep in mind. So,
Okay.
for example, we have Ashes and Grief Torch in third place.
Hmm.
It's a bit behind in 5 minutes, but this will change, of course, depending on the fight time. And I think you may have to scroll a bit to find Call to Dominance.
Oh yeah,
I think
it's here. Yeah.
it's a, it's slightly down. It's like
Yeah, he found it.
it's um it's quite a bit lower than um
It's
than
about
Signet on a
seven.
5 minute fight.
It's about
But
7K lower than the brand
Mm-hmm.
combination.
yeah, but this is also something that varies drastically with fight time and how much damage you can actually
Maybe if I can
get
maybe
out in a cooldown window.
maybe
Yeah.
if I copy the longer fight. I don't know how long the fight here is.
Yeah,
That's
that's basically what you go. Longer fight is basically I went through and tried 7, 8, and 9 minutes, and it didn't really show a difference. It just amplified what I tried to show with a
yeah.
longer fight. So I just stick to 9 minutes, to be totally honest.
Hmm.
Um,
There's going to be
and
maybe 1 or 2 fights that are 9 minutes in all three raids. Like maybe
yeah,
Rezageth and Farak will still be 9 minutes, but that should be about it.
But that's interesting because you can see
yeah.
this fight. Call to
There's
Dominance
also,
is
but
better.
not also basically no fights are going to be 8 or 7. Oh, sorry,
Yeah. But it's just to show that Call
but
to Dominance is better. You know, like in this scenario
y-
because you have like more cast.
exactly.
Yeah.
But also very important that Grief Torch still is not bad in such a long fight. Like it's still there.
Yeah.
Hmm.
The reigning trinket of a long fight, of course, is the Signet brand because it stacks into Oblivion and you just do insane amounts of damage.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically just become a question theoretically if you just hit a target damage for 9 minutes of is Signet brand best. However, if we actually talk about Farak, or if we talk about Razageth, especially, Razageth has vulnerability phases, which absolutely favor Call to Dominance and absolutely favor Ashes, for example, to take
It lines
advantage
up
of.
to in,
Yeah.
Yeah, which it should.
which you
It
can
did
make
in
it
the
more
past,
as
if I
yeah.
remember correctly.
I think
So that's something to keep in mind.
like I think that what we can see here is like average, like in standard fight, Ashes and Signet are the best trinkets. But you can obviously have interesting contenders, especially when if you drop them, you know, during your progression, without thinking about bullion and buy those trinkets, like Call to Dominance, Grief Torch, even like the pure single target one from Rezaget. I mean, it's nice to have this in mind. This is, I think, how we should
And
read the Sims. It's just like,
Mhm.
what are your good options if you don't have Ashes Signet? Well, you have good options here.
and and that massively changes if you go to the farm bosses. So this is for the short fights. This is a 3 minute sim.
Okay.
A kill time I expect to actually apply to a lot of bosses
Yeah,
will be between 3 and 4 minutes.
So it's,
So that sim actually has a very high relevance.
I think this will be
And
your main raid combo.
yeah, that's it.
for a lot of those farm bosses where you're actually trying to parse. And
Yeah.
there you can see that Grief Torch is ahead, winning.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess my little second place, that's always been the second or third best passive trinket in every single sim that we have shown. Spiteful Storm is up there again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
But again,
really
that's
not
only
not
pure
the
single
worst
target.
trinket on poor single target.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very worth mentioning that if there is any, like, if you're, what was the one called where that drops ominous essence, the boss, Dragon Experiments or
Yeah,
something.
experiment. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not that far, by the way, in any of those sims.
No. No, my point is that on a fight like Experiments, which swaps between bosses across the fights, something like Spiteful Storm is actually going to be very bad because it needs to rebuild its vulnerability on the targets to get its value back up. It's as if Brand would reset all of its stacks in between the fights because you're swapping targets. That's kind of what Spiteful Storm does. Which means that
Yeah.
on any target that swaps targets or has ads, Spiteful Storm is going to be significantly worse. So
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely worth remembering.
But yeah, I guess that's a short analysis of the raid trinkets and also explains the recommendations we gave earlier.
Yeah,
Yeah,
true. That's nice to have numbers on those. Okay, let me check the. Okay, there are a lot of things here. Maybe we can just dive into Mythic Plus. I would say equivalent sims.
sure.
Uh,
I would start with the SEF DR Trinket compilation then.
okay.
Uh, of which dungeon? That's actually an injury. The baseline
Mm, I suppose Azure
one
Vault.
is for Throne of the Tides, and then I later did other ones. But
Let's do the Azure Vault then, because I think that's most representative.
Okay, let's go.
Azure Vault.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay,
let's go.
Azure Vault.
So this is
Actually,
tyrannical Azovolt, right?
Yeah.
yeah, this
Uh,
is basically the dungeon that I picked after a bit of discussion with Kirsty, of which has the most amount of low targets
Yeah.
this season, with
A lot of the
AoE
dungeons
if
in
they're
Dragonflight
Azure
have
Vault.
a large amount of AoE pulls. And Azure Vault's arguably the one that has the least, even though it still has some pretty sizable pulls. But like if you're going for something with a good spread of boss damage and small-ish pulls, then Azure Vault's kind of the only thing you have.
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay, so here we are
you said
with
Trinket, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
we say trinket, yeah. So we are with Storm and Fire, Bunder's Brew. This is so Azovolt, tyrannical. Yeah. So maybe you want
Yeah.
to comment about
So
that scene.
basically, the Seiryoku mentioned earlier
You are super
is a
lagging again.
bit of a sim bait, maybe. Will depend on the dungeon. Ah, okay. I guess you can explain this one then.
Well,
If I
yeah.
start lagging. Um,
So what he was trying to say is that the Elemental Pocket Anvil is simming the highest in this profile, but like I said earlier, because as a pretty significant, I don't remember exactly how the trinket works. I believe it is like if you spend 15 seconds out of combat, you will lose all of your value from stacking it up. Like you stack it up by using the unuse effect, which scales pretty quickly, but you need to keep using it to get it max value. Shortly after leaving combat, I believe is 15 seconds, or like after its last usage, I believe. So you could technically, like, if you end the combat and then wait 10 seconds or so and then use it again because it's off cooldown, you can extend the timer by
Mm-hmm.
which it loses its stacks. So you could probably extend it to about a minute. No, so what about 30 seconds? But that's unlikely, I think. So the chance that you lose your stacks in some situations is just too high to recommend it, in my opinion.
yeah.
which leaves like the other recommendations that we have as your
And
just better options.
Yeah, it's also have to
the
say.
first thing that jumps to your eye
Yeah.
is how Call to Dominance is in every single one of the top
Yeah,
iterations for like until you drop like 8,000 DPS or so.
yeah.
Really showcasing that first Storm of Fire
Like the
is the best trinket.
Yeah.
the fact about Storm of the Fire should be like you can always have a Storm of the Fire, or you will always have a Storm of the Fire cast with every Zooin, which is just not the case for Serenity unless you play around it. Like Storm of the Fire should always be used with Zooin, which means that every Call to Dominance window is also buffed by your Storm of the Fire, and that's why it has such higher, dominance in Storm of the Fire build than it does in Serenity.
Hmm. So we have to keep in
And of
mind.
course, the Bone Dust.
We have to keep in
Bone Dust
mind
also.
this is overall damage pure. Like it doesn't really show the balance between single targets and
No,
AoE.
this is overall damage exclusively.
So have to be, to take those numbers with care, because combinations can be like very different depending on the
Yeah,
comp,
like
etc.
if you want to go for a more like good combination of AoE damage and single target damage, I would just go for Torch and Cult of Dominance because like the overall loss, as you can see, is not that big.
Yes.
It's about 1.3k if we don't count the Anvil,
Hmm.
but it will be pretty significantly stronger in single target. I would
Yeah.
not go for the Bomb Dispenser anytime because that just is not very strong in AoE. It's probably going to be better than the Torch in single target unless you have deaths, but you shouldn't count on that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Torch is just the best
Um,
all-rounder option.
I see.
yeah. And then the best is to actually match this up against high AoE dungeon, and you can actually
Yeah,
pick either
so
one.
let's go
Nokut or
for a
Academy. I think they both
go
show
for a
same
Fortified
one. Go
Academy.
Yeah.
for Academy.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's go for Fortified Academy, which is basically the
Highest.
highest AoE sim we can have.
yeah.
Though there is, of course, the minor exception that the Dungeon Lord sim tree boss. That one is just a single target burn in the sim here, which I guess in Tyrannical is accurate. You avoid the ads there as much as possible. um, but you can see that the difference in trinkets there is,
Torch actually going up quite a bit, which is
of
interesting.
course, if there's a lot more AoE, um, if there's a lot more AoE, then that means that stats become a lot better
Yeah.
naturally.
But again, Grift
So
Torch, I mean, when you compare
that's
with
why
the previous, it's very good as well.
Yeah, but you do see
yeah,
a
Grief Torch, because it has an AoE component. People forget that Grief Torch.
Hmm.
oh yeah, it does have the secondary scaling effect, right? So for every additional target, up until 5 additional targets, gives Grief Torch 15% extra damage. So in AoE, you can sort of count on having 5 targets. It will do 60% more damage than usual.
Makes sense. You said by the okay, you said small sim because big. Okay, you did. Oh, you mean you didn't put all the trinkets? I mean that's fine. I think it's
Yeah,
interesting to mention maybe the boon position here. Because
yeah,
we
Yeah,
said
because
I didn't.
see, it's already really low, right? And that's assuming full usage. Sims are sort of simplified in the sense that everything is a melee distance. There's no dangerous mechanics going out. Uh, Everything dies at the same time. So considering all that, or I'm actually not actually sure about that last one, but it doesn't matter. This is the best possible result that you could get with Boon, and it's still significantly worse than Torch or Essence.
hmm I think that's a good way of proving mathematically that boon is not that. I mean, it might show you big numbers, but at the end of the
Yeah,
day, it's
just don't play it.
yeah, just don't play. Maybe do you want? I think because we're still like in a heavy AoE scenario, maybe we can look at Serenity at the same time, so we can
Yeah,
compare maybe in the extreme situation where Serenity and Sum of Fire are different. in
So,
AoE. So just for the quick number, so this is the same dungeon.
yep,
Um,
they would be
But
different
there
in
is
one
one thing I
major
would
thing.
like to mention,
yeah.
which is that because we're looking at Sims, we are essentially looking at overall damage. If you are pushing keys, there is a chance that having higher burst damage might be more valuable for you. And if that's the case, then you kind of can't take Sims at face value, and you should just go with combinations like Call to Dominance and Ashes, because that will give you the highest burst, which may be the highest value.
Mm-hmm. But in
That
yeah,
that said, you can
it's still lagging.
the
Yeah,
dominant
lagging really badly.
trying.
Maybe you can type out the one to say, and I'll just repeat it for you.
Like what we can see here, obviously, is the raw difference. I think first we can talk about the raw difference in terms of damage. I know it's overall. I know it doesn't show probably the burst. It doesn't show any repetition of the damage between single target and AoE. But I think
Hmm.
in the mathematical way, this is the worst difference we can have between Storm of Fire
Pretty much, yeah. Like
and Serenity.
this is the most extreme example of the difference. Yeah.
Um, which is when we look at those numbers, it's only 15 yeah 15k,
Yeah, it's
which
not huge. It's like 5% or something.
yeah, it's not. I think this maybe this number to keep in mind for people that want to
Or
choose
2%.
between Storm of Fire and Serenity. The difference, yeah, it's 2%, so in heavy AoE scenario. So again, it's not that we have a completely, for example, comparing to Red Paladins, a very big difference between single target and AoE builds. It's not that simple as this for monks, and I think it's interesting to see those raw numbers, but again, doesn't show the single target damage contribution.
This small difference is why I think that Serenity will still be a popular choice for many people.
Yeah. Um, but again, the Serenity, just because we talked about this earlier, but aggro issue with Serenity, if you play with Ashes and Qual Domination, is going to be a very big problem. At least in PTR, like I don't know if you tested in PTR yet, but in PTR, all the time I was like sending my burst with Serenity, Call to Domination. That was a disaster, like
Hmm.
all the time. So if I think this is something to be looked at and be very careful with. Um, I'm looking
Yeah,
at
there's one thing
yeah.
that we should point out is that when you're picking between the two, um, Storm of the Fire is almost certainly the one that has the highest burst potential, which means that if you have an AUG in your group, that is actually a pretty solid argument to play Storm of Fire. Just because you're stacking so much more into your Zuen, which lines up with everything that AUG has to offer, like their Breath of Eons and their Ebonmite uptimes. Uh, if you have an AUG in a group, you probably should just play Storm of the Fire.
Streaming Champions League, okay. Yeah, Og would definitely be an argument for Storm of Fire. I would just
Yep.
maybe show just to, as Kola said on chat, because we didn't talk about really talents in depth, but it's because actually the Sims are not that. Uh, that would show basically almost no difference. So this is like
Yeah, what I think he's saying is that no matter which dungeon you pick and no matter which tyrannical fortified affix you pick, the difference between your Storm of the Fire builds and your Serenity builds will be more or less 2% every time.
yeah. I think it's yeah. Like I just took here. There was Academy. If you, so I don't know how to. Okay, it's is this like you? Oh, is
Yeah,
this?
okay.
Oh yeah. Okay, you can click like this. Okay.
Yeah, so and yeah, even if you pick not just between Serenity and SCF, but also if picking between whether to play Storm of the Bone Dust Brew and Fury of Zuen, for example, those will still be practically equal every time as well,
Yeah, we can really see like
no
it's
matter if you play Storm of Fire or Serenity.
yeah, and like calling Dragon Punch is not that far, but yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
okay. I think it's interesting. So obviously, those recommendations, they are like we here we have seen two dungeons. So Azovold for the most, I would say maybe tyrannical part, and Sims for Academy for the 45, but obviously keep in mind for people hearing us and watching us that it will depend on composition. And as you said, augmentation will be a strong argument in favor of Storm of Fire.
Mhm.
Personal preference, and also like the dungeon itself. Uh, Personally, I like when it seems pretty natural when it comes to AOE. This is more like personal opinion and stuff, but
Well, that's I don't actually think that the dungeon itself makes much of a difference.
mm,
I think whatever you choose based on personal preference will basically apply to every other dungeon.
mm,
So whether, regardless or not, whether it's tyrannical or fortified, doesn't matter. Which dungeon it is doesn't matter. What mainly matters is what you prefer to play, what you feel like you are better at, and whether or not you have an AUG in the group. Those are your main
yeah,
factors to consider.
yeah. As Kola said, Storm of Fire is very stable. You can just
Stale, he said.
stale, but I think it's stable. It's
I
stale.
don't know if he meant stale or stable.
But you just you can just use indeed this build, and you can, as it said, you can just remove Bonda's Brew and play with I mean stale. Okay, sorry, maybe it's stable. I don't know. And you can just remove Bonda's Brew, and I mean you if you don't have to, but I think it wins. Bonda's Brew
Yeah.
wins in every dungeon, so no way, there's no way to remove it.
Well,
Um,
you say that, but like even though it wins every time, the difference between playing it and not playing it is actually not that big.
yeah,
So
you can remove it.
it
Yeah.
just brings it down to personal preference. If you don't mind pressing the extra button every minute, then go for it.
Yes, that's also like an issue. People, you have like one button less, so I guess it's also something you can
Yeah,
consider.
I'm sure that a lot of people will prefer not pressing it.
Yeah, true, true. Maybe I think we I like that. There are obviously a lot of sims. Maybe I would just put the link of those sims on the discussion, because we can stay a lot here. I'm looking at the time, so we have 9 minutes left, which I think it's the perfect time to maybe give some personal opinion about this season and about I don't know, maybe raid Mythic Plus. What are you expecting and things like this? So maybe if you want to start, sir, about this,
Yeah.
what do you think?
Yeah, I'm expecting. I'm not expecting great things. I don't think Windwalker is going to stand out in terms of single target damage or like AoE burst. I think our strengths will remain relatively the same as they are in this season, which is target swapping mainly, and I suppose burst damage. Like if you manage to line up your cooldowns with a damage phase on a boss, and that will be very good, because despite everything, we still have one of the strongest burst windows out of every spec.
Mm,
I am not personally a big fan of tier lists, so I'm not going to like say if I think which tier I think Windwalker is. I think we will be able to compete with every spec that is considered meta, just not beat them.
mm-hmm.
And especially in raid, I think that there are probably going to be some specs that just stick out that we have no chance of competing with. In keys, I believe that we will be like one of the best non-meta specs.
Okay, that's a clear opinion. Um,
Yeah.
maybe I don't know if Koda wants to write it while he's writing it. I would just I actually agree with you. I think the biggest issue about Windwalker is that they are range DPS that are performing better in keys. It's
Mhm.
also safer somehow. I don't know. I think Blizzard did, because we didn't talk about this, but they did, I think, a great work for tuning dungeons, tuning abilities, remove like very cancerous abilities, the bites in
Yeah,
Bracken.
people were very scared of Rakenhide Hollow the first time the
Yeah.
dungeon tuning came around because they did some changes that felt very odd, but then they sort of like iterated onto them. And I think if the dungeons go live in their current state, it will be pretty good actually. Like they
Mm,
removed a lot of the very painful points of most dungeons and made them a lot more manageable. So I think we're looking at a relatively like there are still some moments left that seem very overtuned. The one that jumps to mind is the bleed on the third boss of Uldaman.
Yeah.
Holy shit! What is
Oh,
that?
I don't know.
Something just was very loud, staticky. Anyway, um, yeah. Okay. So what Color is saying is that we depending on what build you play, you might see a lot of people that will, for example, die to aggro because of you know the stars aligning. You have Serenity, you have Dance of Gigi, you have your tier set active, and you just press a button and everything turns to you and smacks you in the face.
Yeah.
You know, aggro issues like that are probably going to be very common if you play Serenity. Um, we probably still have very powerful bursts if everything lines up very well, so that could look really good for some people. But in the end, we're not going to carry as much damage as the meta classes. So,
Yeah.
in terms of like overall value to the comp to the meters, we're probably going to be, you know, good but average.
Yeah, I think that's the issue. We are not producing the same damage as Meta. We don't have, I mean, we have synergies with Meta classes, but not that much.
Yeah,
Comparing to Mage and Shadow Priest, for example.
yeah. Like Og is the exception here, right? Because Og is like in the Serenity builds, August, or sorry, in the Storm of the Fire build, August probably going to be very happy buffing a Windwalker. I think. I
Yeah,
think that the Windwalker will be an exceptional spec for them to buff. However, things like Bloodlust and PI are still going to be, I wouldn't say worthless on Windwalker, by far not worthless, but there are some specs that are just far better with it.
mm,
Like, we still very much like our Bloodlust, we still very much like getting PI, but it's probably not going to be better on you than it is on someone else.
yeah, probably. Do we have, by the way, numbers for other specs, like as you did for
I've only seen
Sims?
a couple. I've heard of like Havoc Sims and I believe Red Sims and some Beastmaster Sims, and compared to those, we seem to actually be beating their sim in single target, which is relatively promising.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have, I believe it was
Devastation and
yeah,
Arms Warrior.
exactly. Those two are sticking out like a sore thumb to the point where I honestly expect some class tuning to rein them back in because having that much of a difference in the start of the season is just unhealthy, I think.
Yeah.
Death also is the best PI target.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's gonna happen, right? It's never going. We're never going to be the best PI target. You can safely give up on that.
That's true. Yeah, maybe yeah
Game
we can
rate, at
expect
least.
some class tuning in the before the season
I
4.
kind of do. I expect class tuning either this week or next.
Okay. Well, we will see.
Yes.
What can I say more? I think like we pretty covered all the things. I like this format of short answer questions and things like this. I think it was very clear and makes the information to be catch very easily. Um, and we are on time.
Whoa.
Goddess is happy. Well, she's not, but she
Oh.
no, she is. Don't
Oh.
worry. Well, I think it's time for us to conclude. I think we just let's say we can wait for more class tuning, but I'm not a big fan of tier set as well. But I think what we can show when we can see about this tier set, obviously the pattern of meta classes, but also we can see that monk is actually in middle strong, but not that great choice. It's always on the same position as you can see. It's like
Yeah.
the B tier, but it's B, but a bit B plus. It
Yeah.
really
Don't
depends.
pass them up just because you think they don't do good. They will do good,
Yes.
right? They are a strong pick for most comps. It's just if you're going for a specific comp that plays well within each other, like has a lot of great synergies,
Hmm.
then maybe monk is not your best shot.
Yeah, like if you want to be taken into, I think we still have the same issue of being taken into keys comparing to other melee such as red, for example, that are in the people's mind, and
Yeah. Well, if you
perception.
you look at the tier list that you've linked on your slide,
Yes.
Destro, Shadow Priest, and Augmenters are three specs that just work really well together. Yeah, like you have a very powerful PI target in the Destro. The
Yes.
Augmenter is pretty good in buffing both of them.
And also,
Uh,
and those tiers that can
and
change. Yeah.
if you replace any of those with Windwalker, it will be a worse comp. That's
Yes,
that's pretty certain.
I mean we can see like even decision like monks are they're running with wires, things like this. They are not like in the meta comp today, but they are really well. Uh, they benefit well from Windwalker and reciprocal. I mean, in the other way as well.
Yeah.
So as long as they are not equilibrating org on midi specs, it doesn't change anything. What do you think about this state?
Sorry. Sorry, could you repeat that?
Like Augmenter is not balanced for midi specs. What do you think about this take?
I
I
don't
think
know
it's
about that.
wrong.
I think it's wrong as well. I think melee specs tend to have more 2-minute bursts than range specs, I believe. I'm kind of pulling that out of my ass, but no, that's not really true. Like Agi and Strength just doesn't really make a difference for Og, because in the end they just give primary stats to those specs, right? It's not like they give you int or something. It's
Mhm.
just that it scales off of int for them.
Yeah, the main problem for Windwalker was that we just have a shit ton of versatility, which hurt Orc in a pretty significant
Yeah,
way
so their mastery effect sort of
from
DRs on us
buffing
pretty.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And our burst window is kind of a bit awkward for the augmentation evoker.
Is it? I mean,
They
in
they
season
they
3, you mean?
prefer they prefer us to either go earlier or later, and not in the middle way that Storm Earth and Fire usually does. That's kind of
Yeah,
weird for them
Mhm.
because
but
it
our
usually
Suan
desyncs from the other
windows,
DPS.
our Suan windows are very strong for them, I think.
Yeah, yeah, but in the actual timing of the 2 minute windows is a bit awkward for them.
Yeah.
Okay, I
But
don't know about that.
overall, actually, I think Windwalker and Augmentation will pair very well in the next season because Augmentation will also fix a lot of the availability problems Windwalker can encounter if they choose to run offensive trinkets.
Yeah.
And running double offensive trinket, which is something Windwalker can do. We are like one of the only specs that can have two offensive trinkets up at the same time. With Call
All
to
dominance.
Dominance and Ashes
Yeah.
during perfectly lining up with our cooldowns. And perfectly lining up with the Ox cooldowns is going to be an extremely powerful way to absolutely delete something.
Mhm. Okay. Well, I think I would have to go anyway. We can
Yeah.
discuss obviously about this on Peak of Serenity Discord. Feel free to join Kholer, Seiryoku, and all the vets on Peak of Serenity Discord. They will answer all the questions, even though the Season 4 is not started yet. And obviously, there are a lot of background work. I think it was also nice to get this podcast to show people what is this background work, which is extremely long and heavy and stuff like this to finally, put this into 10 slides. One question, one answer, but actually the answer is actually the process and the results of a big research and mathematical and simulation. I mean, sims and things like this. I think it's very nice to show people this. And well, we can say let's see us in like maybe 1 week in season 4, and we might do like a podcast maybe during the season, because I know the season 3 did well, nothing really happened during this season. So I hope maybe we can get some things about season 4, and I'm really looking forward, and I hope you guys can talk about this Mist of Pandaria thing coming. Obviously we need more data, but I think it's going to be very nice to go back into Monk,
Yeah.
I would say birthplace. And as maybe I think it was Babs that said this in Twitter, it said maybe it's a good time for this mop thing to
It's gonna be interesting. I haven't actually played Mob with Walker, so it's gonna
yeah.
be
Oh, it doesn't.
quite
Oh, you
new
don't
for
need to worry
me
about
if
that
they
because
actually.
it won't actually be like the mob version of Windwalker. It will all just be Dragonflight's class stuff.
Yeah,
So you will have
and I
you will have the
am,
current version of Windwalker.
and given how every streamer is going to has stopped streaming until Wednesday, people that
Apparently, something's
know
happening
what
on
that
Wednesday.
means.
Is the alpha?
Yeah,
It's probably the alpha.
um, yeah, probably the alpha. I think that's probably gonna be a bigger talking point for us.
Yeah.
As we get to experience the first iteration of Shadowpan and Conduit of the Celestials, and how they all the tooltips actually work out, because there has actually been a lot of open questions as to how stuff even works.
Hmm.
So that's
I
going to be
agree
interesting.
with Babs in that for the first time in forever there has been there is an event about Mists of Pandaria, and indirectly is something that is related to monks. It sort of puts monks back in the spotlight a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
If Blizzard at any point decides to rework our class or our spec, then honestly this would be the best way to do, or best time to do it. So please do that. Thank you.
Okay,
They don't have the resources to do it in
they, w- they, they,
10.2.7.
they will do it. Don't worry. Maybe for the war within, let's say.
It
Let's
doesn't have
see.
to be in next season.
Let's see. Okay, guys, I wish you a very good night. I have to go anyway because it's time. But let's discuss about this a bit later if you want to. And thank you for so much, guys, for being here. Have a good night
Yeah.
Thank you.
and a good evening,
Bye.
and see you on
Yeah.
Discord. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. This is the podcast number 8. It will be put on YouTube with all the questions and things. Donc tout sera mis sur YouTube. On fera sans doute un stream pour vous redonner un petit peu les éléments qu'on a expliqués. Tout est sur les slides. Je mettrai les slides, je mettrai tout sur YouTube. Voilà, je mettrai tout. C'est une très très bonne nuit. Je vous fais des big bisous. Je vous aime très fort. Et by the way, j'ai eu le job. Donc dans 3 mois, je suis libre. La bise. Et je vous aime très fort. Merci, merci. Allez, la bise.